Trying is the opportune word. Hey y'all, it's Sat. Hope you're having a terrific day today. For this video, we're going to be doing a weekly reading vlog. Alrighty, so without further ado, let's dive right on in. It's Wednesday. I hope you're having a good day, my dudes. I'm working from home. I have a okay set of stuff to do today. I also need to take Sam to the vet this afternoon. Well, not like need, it's his annual checkup. But we're in the middle of about 3 books right now, one of which I really want to try and close out today, because that would be The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, which this is the pick for my Geek Squad book club that I host over on my Patreon, and I'm in the midst of finishing out my spoilery reading vlog. I am in the last 25%. This has been going swimmingly for me, so I really just want to keep this momentum and try to close this one out today. I've been alternating between reading it with my eyes and then listening to the audiobook by Andy Serkis, because it's Andy Serkis and the performance is amazing. So this is like top priority right now. But I also have an ebook going of, I think it's called Her Cowboy Protector by Sasha Summers, which is a book for my Buns Roses TBR jar challenge. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll put a link to the playlist up above. And this is also going to be the first of a kind of experimental vlog, because it's a cowboy romance and I have shied away from those for a very long time. And I can already say with this one, I know Sasha Summers is from a country area, so I do feel like she is managing not to make it too over the top with the cowboy, but I don't love the fact that the female main character, Harper, who I think she's from like Detroit or Chicago, I want to say, somewhere up north. I know it was a big city in one of the I states, but she is definitely unfamiliar with this area. And so she's really like wide-eyed and just can't believe how normal like cowboy culture is, especially when you're on a ranch. And like that is a little grating for me. Shocked and like enamored of certain things. And I'm just like, yeah, that's the norm in this sort of an area. But so Harper is like running away from her past. She has a bit of a traumatic backstory, and she recently survived a violent event that took place in a crowded area. And unfortunately, her brother ended up passing from it. So she's trying to find a fresh start for her and ends up interviewing for the Winston Ranch, which I found very amusing given the fact I loved the Winston Brothers, but that series is set in Tennessee and we were in Texas. And she's going to be like a housekeeper slash, she's not really a farmhand, she's just kind of helping out when necessary. And the hero character, Ames, has also gone through something relatively traumatic in his background that has affected his voice in some way, so he doesn't really like to speak and he ends up coming off kind of gruff and meanish. They're slowly sort of getting to know each other because unfortunately Ames is also the right-hand man of the owners. So he keeps getting roped into trying to help Harper. Apart from the way Harper is responding to the setting, for the most part, I am feeling relatively positive about this. The one angle I'm unsure about is the fact that like we keep being told in Harper's head that she is shy, but she is usually the one initiating conversations with everybody around her. And it's like, I don't know, that feels like something I would do in a new job, and I am definitely not shy. So that feels a little inauthentic. We'll see. It's going fine enough at least. And then lastly, I have gotten about 30-ish pages in, I think, to Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I'm very unsure of how this is going to go. I won't lie. As of right now, I just don't feel a ton of draw to keep picking this book up, but I'm also only 30 pages in. Like, I do want to give it more of an actual chance. This one was also annotated for me by my friend Allie, and she ended up really enjoying it so much that she told me, like, as the book continues, she has less and less annotations because she was just focused on reading. I will try to alternate reading this audibly and physically so that I can take down annotations, but also I think reading it audibly, I think it'll help me work through the story a little bit faster, because this is a classic romantasy and I'm still trying to figure out like what works for me in romantasies. Sorry, this angle might have shifted a little bit because I got a phone call. But anyway, so in this one we were following this woman who is a human living in a society of mostly vampires. She was adopted by this dude who is not like the head vampire, but like he's very well renowned. But because she is a human, though his child, he has like trained her in order to be able to handle herself and stand up against vampires. And she is entered into some sort of a games or competition thing. I don't really know what it is she's like fighting for necessarily. Everything is still being talked about and like all these illusions. Even as far as her joining the competition, it was kind of this like unsaid thing for the first little bit because everybody's like talking around it. I'm guessing because given the fact that she's a human, like nobody really has a lot of faith that she is going to win. So that is intriguing. So far, I don't feel super strongly about our main character yet. She right now just seems like every other like strong romantic-y female character I've ever read. As far as the vampire world angle goes, I will admit I'm interested, and like it seems a little different because the vampires have wings. Some of them are more akin to like bat wings and some have like feathers on them, which was a little, I have conflicting feelings about the fact that it's mentioned the vampires cannot necessarily always control their bloodlust, which seems weird since are the majority in this society. And it's like, if this group has been around for long enough that they have like come into power and they can't control their thirst, wouldn't they have like eaten off humans by this point? Kind of weird. That's one thing I'm not sure how that's going to work as far as like the world building continues. But at the same time, we have not really actually interacted with many vampires just yet. So we'll see. I don't know how this is going to go, honestly. I am very intrigued to keep trying. Trying is the opportune word. We'll see. Good morning, friends. Let's try filming this for the third time because I just cannot get my groove going. It's Friday. Sorry, I didn't update last night. I went to my brother's as per usual on Thursdays, but I did get a lot of reading done. Starting at the top, officially closed out The Hobbit, and I loved this. I just felt very seen by Bilbo's character. Not to say I did not enjoy Frodo in Lord of the Rings, but Sam was definitely more my favorite there. However, Bilbo here, just, I loved him. Trying to make the best of the situation, trying to keep everybody happy, but at the same time, like all you want to do is go home and lay down, read your book, have some iced tea, eat as much food as you want. Felt, but also he's just genuinely like a good person, and I really like watching him being the unexpected hero like time and time and time again. I really enjoyed it. And then it was very ironic. I was listening to the audiobook of this performed by Andy Serkis, and then last night at my brother's we watched the newest episode of Rick and Morty, and he was a guest star, so I could not escape his voice. Not that I would ever want to. Then yesterday on lunch, I continued on with Her Cowboy Protector by Sasha Summers, and I'm having mixed feelings about this. Starting out positive, now that the two main characters have sort of confessed their feelings for one another, I do like how open a line of communication they have. There was something that could have very easily evolved into an issue if they didn't talk about it, and pretty quickly, as soon as they were alone, they talked things out, and it just felt very mature, and I really liked that. Plus, now I do appreciate that it seems like they're being more willing to showcase their prior traumas and being more vulnerable with one another in comparison with the other people on the ranch, which I really liked also. Harper's like being kind of cagey about her background to everybody else, not because it's like necessarily bad, but she doesn't want it to impact the way everybody else views her. And I can tell that is already going to develop into probably a problem in the plot as it goes on. But Ames is like the one person she's really sort of been honest with, not 100%, but like even just little things. And then on the opposite side with Ames, he grew up on this ranch. He's been there for years. So I think it's probably more a situation of like everybody is already familiar with his background. But when it comes to new people, he's like very slow to trust. So he's not really super open about it there. And now he is sort of allowing Harper in closer. And I'm really liking that. The setup of like the ranch, I don't know, there's just been certain things here and there that feel like it's a reality show sort of thing. The mother hen of the ranch, who her husband owns it, every time there's some sort of a like social event, she keeps pushing Harper to like be cute, dress up, talk with all the guys. And even after Harper mentions she's like not really looking for anything romantic, she keeps insisting and saying, you know, like, well, you don't know when romance is gonna find you. And it's like, ma'am, she has been here for a week. Let her get settled first. She moved cross country. She's starting a new job. Like, she's living with all of these new people. Give her some time. So all of the other ranch hands keep flirting with her. And then once she and Ames do agree to try and maybe develop something, another person mentions that like they need to keep this on the down low because the other ranch hands will turn it into a competition, trying to like win Herper's favor, because men can turn anything into a competition. But at the same time, like also just being chauvinistic, I don't think that should be something they have to factor in that affects their relationship. So it is going okay. It is getting better as I get further into the book and like as they're now starting to actually become something. Then I did continue on with Serpent and the Wings of Night. I actually read a fair amount of this yesterday. I'm probably around 30% into it. And I'm getting more invested into the plot. I am starting to like the main character more, though I will say for both the world and the main character, there's just certain stuff here and there that I'm like, this feels like it is trying to be edgy. The setting itself that's been developed, I do really like. It has this sort of gothic feel, but there are certain elements of the world that I can't help questioning about. Like I think I mentioned before, why do humans still live in this city? Or like, how are they still living in this city if the vampires are the ones in charge? And it's like a well-known fact that the vampires will still hunt the humans. Like, how have the humans not died out at that point? Then there was this whole angle with the main character, because there are not a lot of humans in this society, and obviously the majority of them are vampires, human medicine is also difficult to get. But her father gets her some, rather than saving it for this competition that she is entering, which they know could, result in her losing her life. Instead, he wastes it on an injury she has on her hand. So then when she actually does get drastically injured, she is forced to rely on other characters within the competition. I don't know. I just didn't like that being used as something to like push this relationship forward. I assume the guy she is forced to take on as an ally is supposed to be the hero, the romantic interest. I just didn't like how that was set up because, again, logic. I just can't imagine, you have this one vial of medicine and you're going into these super deadly games, but sure, let's waste it on a cut on your hand, a very non-lethal cut. That just seemed really ridiculous to me. But I also am having very conflicting feelings with the ally now. It's very clear that like both of them are doing this for their own reasons. Both of them have hidden agendas and are not being 100% honest with the other person because obviously they don't know one another very well. But he keeps like pushing at her and questioning like why she's so untrusting of him and all this stuff. And it's like, you don't have to be 100% honest. You could literally just be as clear as saying, you're a vampire, I'm a human. Statistically speaking, in our world, it's not going to go great for me no matter how strong I am, because that is sort of a recurring thing she always thinks about, is how weak humans are in comparison to the vampires. So I just like didn't get why that like such an obvious piece of dialogue was not being used, and it very easily could have fostered like something between the two of them, kicked off a little bit of an open conversation. That said, for the most part, I do like the hero character. I do think he's kind of interesting. I am curious about like what are some of the secrets he has going on. There's allusions to something that's happening outside of this competition that I think is supposed to, reveal the like grander plot that I imagine is going to be happening in this world. There's barely been anything of it yet, so I just don't really care. The thing I do care about so far is watching the main character try to survive the trials. A weird mixed bag so far, but at the very least, it is keeping my intrigue now, and it is keeping me reading. Anyway, so it's Friday. I work from home today. I do want to try and continue listening to this on audio. I will need to film an update for her Cowboy Protector and then probably try to finish that one out, which would be great. If I do, I want to try and roll into reading a manga next. Hello, my dudes. So it's Saturday. Hope you're having a good day. I have done a fair amount of reading, so even though it is very late, I need to film an update. First and foremost, I finished out her Cowboy Protector yesterday. It's ironic that I was praising this book for having the main characters actually communicating, because the third act conflict is a lack of communication thing. I get why this would cause certain events to happen, but I do not understand why the main characters could not talk about this. So at the very least, I finished this. It was fine. It wasn't really for me, if I'm being honest. This was very much not a book for me. I also continued on with Serpent and the Wings of Night, listening to this on audio when we went to the gym. I think I'm probably pretty close to the halfway point at this point. And something just happened which feels like it is going to be the main plot moving forward, you know, the bigger plot outside of this competition. Not super intrigued just yet, if I'm being honest, but I am getting more invested into the main character. At the very least, I feel she is actually fairly believable as this fighter, that she actually can survive during these games. Little things, though, in the plot that do feel like they're kind of going to be more important in the larger scheme of things does have me very intrigued. So at the very least, my intrigue is still relatively high, even though I'm not super in love with the characters, with the romance, not super in love with the plot, but I'm interested, I guess. Then last night, because I had finished out her Cowboy Protector, I did try to start into, totally slipping my mind, Kaiju number 8, volume 10, and I probably got about halfway through it. Was really enjoying it. We're getting to see some very, very good fight scenes, and also some expansion upon a side character who I do like, but I don't know why her name escapes me every single time. I've made a little bit more progress into that one throughout the day today, but for the most part, Josh and I were relatively busy. We went and had a nice lunch, took his car in for some work, and then we did some shopping for clothing, stuff around the house, swung by a Barnes & Noble, so I do have a little mini haul to go through. Really, I personally only bought one book, which was *𝗖cie by Marie Roche, I'm assuming. Listen, the title, the tagline, and then these edges. I just couldn't resist. Fellas, is it gay to kiss your BFF while gallivanting through the forest on a quest you're unqualified for? This book contains dummies to lovers. There was only one bed. Oops, we've accidentally adopted a kid. I need to eat some cheese about this. You see why I was intrigued. I gotta know. I gotta know what is this book about. I gotta know how does this go. I really am so interested. 2 heroes, 1 brain cell. I'm all over it. I couldn't resist myself. But Josh actually did some purchasing, and technically speaking, that basically means I also get these books. First one is actually a manga. The guy she likes wasn't a guy at all. This is a Yuri that he had been reading digitally and was really enjoying, so he decided to get a physical copy. I've heard really good things about this one. It seems like we're following 𝗖cie, who is a big rock fan, but nobody really shares her interest until she meets this employee at a CD shop. And initially, this person's got this mysterious air about them, but turns out it's actually her female classmate. Like I said, I've heard really positive things. It is getting turned into an anime here soon, and apparently there's being a lot of music created to go along with the show, which is very cool. Plus, I do really like the way the art is done with this green coloring. That's awesome. So I do want to try this one out. Plus, this would work for a manga on the Sapphic Bingo Board Challenge, which I'm partaking in, that's great. He also grabbed Lost in Space by Rebecca Thorne. Personally, I've been hesitant to try this author because she does cozy fantasy, but an employee at the Barnes did say this one was really good, and they had a little plaque mentioning that if you enjoy Murderbot, you will like this. Looks like Thorne just recently bought her first starship, which is great, except for it's seen better days. However, it turns out she's got this surprise passenger, a Moss, that is an organic computer with a snarky attitude and serious abandonment issues. Okay, that sounds fun. It's also got these cool French flaps with additional art. I believe Rebecca Thorne tends to do sapphic romances in her stuff, and it is more of a cozy sci-fi, and thus far cozy sci-fi has gone better for me. And then lastly is Startup Hell by Caitlin Rozakis seems more accurate. I've seen this cover floating around and I do really like it. These sprayed edges, gotta love them. It's a contemporary fantasy that exposes the demonic nature of the corporate
corporate world, as we're following Morgan, who's working an entry-level sales job at a tech startup, but her boss ends up summoning a demon to trade his soul to make their target, oh my god, and dies without sending the demon home. Okay, this sounds really funny. So like I was saying, impromptu Barnes & Noble haul, but very excited to dive into all of these. Then this afternoon, we basically ended up having a nice little date night. We went to an arcade, which was super fun, but we closed things out by playing this like mystery in a box game, and it was pretty fun, actually, I will say. You examine all the evidence, eliminate the suspects, and catch the killer. It's kind of like a more in-depth version of Clue. Like, you actually have to work through all of the evidence and piece the story together yourself. It was really fun, though. The hardest part was there was this code thing that kept coming up, and it was the biggest pain in the ass. It's pretty late. I'm gonna go get ready for bed.
Hey y'all, happy Monday. So I didn't talk to you yesterday because I just was not feeling great. I was in a weird funk. I was very exhausted. So majority of yesterday was spent lazing around. I did a little bit of chores, did finish out Kaiju number 8, volume 10 last night. Josh and I are currently in the middle of a different TV show, but I am hoping we can maybe try and start into this here soon. I feel like majority of this volume was really focused on either like Hoshina or Shinomiya, and I really liked that. So we got to see a little bit more of both of their characters. The fight scenes for both of them, fan-freaking-tastic. But the ones for Shinomiya are so good. And then the way they're being done to kind of explore her background and like the way her fighting styles have developed, all of it was so I really, really liked it. I greatly enjoy her as a character. I don't know what it is because she honestly makes me think of like Black Star from Soul Eater. To be fair, toned down a little bit. She is not nearly that drastic, but her energy is sort of the same. And just something about it works so much better for me. Or honestly, like I feel also kind of like Bakugo from My Hero Academia, which again, I'm not really a Bakugo girl either. So that's very funny for me to say because I'm really enjoying her. But those two are like the first comparison characters that come to mind, which is amusing to me. Absolutely loving it. Went ahead and got the next volume from my library so I can try to continue on with it when I get the chance. Then today I have continued on with Serpent the Wings of Night. I'm around like 60-ish% into this now. And I have to say, I think I have figured out my issue with this book and what's holding me back from really loving it. And it's the main character. I just don't feel like she has personality. Her entire personality seems to boil down to stab first, ask questions later. Outside of that, I don't know, her voice is just so bland. Occasionally there's like some banter with the love interest character, but even then, I just like don't feel strongly about her at all. She is, I was gonna say vanilla, but like, okay, she is vanilla ice cream with a light sprinkle on top. That's how interesting she is for me as far as characters go. And it's really irritating too because I feel like there are opportunities to explore the layers of her character because I feel like the character that has been created does have nuance. There is some interesting angles to explore with her, but her personality just like does not convey any of that to me. But especially now that I'm further into the book, I feel like we are getting to see more around the complicated relationship she has with her father. And that is especially intriguing. I would love to work through her thought process as her feelings start to shift and change based on what she's starting to experience because of the like plot that's evolving in the background. But everything so far just feels like it's little references to stuff. Nothing's explicitly being worked out for the main character. Maybe that's coming. Maybe I'm just being impatient, but I've also noticed that the exposition seems really repetitive. So I'm getting tired of just going over the same stuff time and time and time again when there is other stuff that's been presented to me that interests me. I'm not even joking. Like one of the last chapters I just finished, she just thought back and forth about how, well, Rain and I have to work together and we've been allies for all this time. And like, I don't understand what it is, but I trust him so much, but I'm going to have to kill him. him. I'm gonna have to kill him. Literally a circle. That whole thought process, just a circle for like the entire last chapter. So irritating, especially because we have heard all of this before. I have heard her talk about this numerous times at this point. I get it. I get it. Either do it or don't. I don't care anymore. Stop talking about it. So not loving her and that angle of the writing. But the plot itself is very interesting. I gotta say, the plot, it has me. I'm so intrigued. The little bits we're getting around the mythological world building, also really like how that's being done. Has me interested in some of the other characters as well. And kind of, because this is a romantasy, technically speaking, I actually like the male main character, Rain, but I do not understand what this man possibly sees in Araya. Not a clue. Anyway. So I continued on with this one. I also started into my next Buns Roses book, which is The Magnificent Earl of March, I want to say, by Cecilia Renee, which I am really excited for this because I love Cecilia Renee's writing. Her spice is so good. And the setup for this one has me very intrigued. We've started out following Hunt, who is an earl who inherited this earldom from his father, who was very estranged from his family. He hates his dad. And so by extension, he doesn't care about the earldom. He purely wants it so that he can take care of his mom and his sister. That's it. Otherwise, this man is just going out having a good time, living the high life, sex, drugs, rock and roll sort of energy. But unfortunately for him, I'm thinking the series itself that this is in focuses on this like gossip rag, which every month is releasing some like report on a rake in the ton. And so this one is obviously for March. And because of this, it's bringing some negative attention onto his family, which is a problem given the fact that there is an ongoing fight for this earldom. His father actually wanted to leave it to our main character, Hunt's cousin, his father's nephew. I kind of primed him for this, but when he ended up passing unexpectedly, Hunt got it. Because technically speaking, it was his to inherit. But if his reputation starts to negatively impact the earldom, then his cousin could have a case to try and fight against him being the earl and taking it over. I've just barely started into this one. I'm also just barely starting to meet the female main character. She's like 25. She's never really succeeded in getting any matches. So she's kind of just sequestered herself to spinsterdom, but is trying to help her younger sister enter into society and find some guy to marry. But her situation is not helped by the fact that she is unfortunately a bastard. And so, of course, like that makes things more complicated. Haven't even seen these two interact yet, but I am liking both of them. And so I'm very excited to see how this book continues. Also, I got my first PR package today and I am so over the moon excited. I still need to film the unboxing video for it. And I'm going to be reading this for a dedicated ARC reading vlog, but it is Deb Marlowe's newest book, Betrothed's Betrayal, where we're following this woman who unfortunately has recently been dumped by her fiance. And when she ends up moving to this small town to kind of escape this whole situation and all of the negative response she's getting from the ton, unfortunately for her, she ends up finding her fiance's body. And of course, now she has to try to work to prove her innocence. I'm excited for it. It sounds like a fun setup, especially because she kept selling this as, it was like Murder, She Wrote meets Gilmore Girls, and that's up my alley. Anyway, on that note, I need to do more filming, which is a shame because I also want to go make dinner, but no rest for the wicked. So high 48 hours, I guess I'll say, have been a bit of a roller coaster ride, meaning I've barely gotten anything read and I have not thought about filming at all. Monday night, Sam threw up 5 times in like 3 hours and then we took him to urgent care. It was a whole thing. We were there until like nearly midnight. Came home absolutely exhausted, stayed up even later to try and monitor him. And then on Tuesday, I ended up working from home so I could keep an eye on him. He barely ate anything for majority of the day, ended up having to take him back to urgent care for x-rays. He's fine. Literally nothing is wrong with him except he was full of gas. It was a whole freaking thing. And while dealing with all of that, before going to urgent care again yesterday, I bit into a peach pit and I messed up my tooth, or I thought I messed up my tooth. In reality, I actually bent my permanent retainer that's on the bottom of my teeth. So I had to go into the dentist for an emergency check-in this morning to make sure I did not dislodge a tooth, though I did bruise the nerve, and then they had to take my retainer out so that it doesn't mess up the way my teeth are aligned. It's been really fun. So with all of that, I have really only read a little bit more into The Magnificent Earl of March whenever we were waiting at urgent care. So I'm at about 40% into this and I am liking it. It is pretty fast moving. It is also insta-love, which is not really my favorite trope, but I do like these two characters. Their interactions so far are like purely banter. So the actual plot, as I mentioned previously, Hunt came into this earldom, but in reality, his father wanted to leave the earldom to his nephew, Hunt's cousin. And so Hunt's cousin has continued to make this a problem for him and basically is standing in as an imposter of Hunt, has seduced this young woman who is the female main character's little sister. And while the cousin, Augustus, is kind of using this as a way to, first off, ruin Hunt's reputation, but second, also possibly get some money out of Margaret and Delia's father. But because like neither of the families know about this and already get married, they're running off to Scotland. So Delia, the female main character, is worried about her little sister's reputation, even more so now that she knows this guy is not actually the Earl of March. And so she, along with Hunt, are going to go on this like carriage chase to try and track them down. But things are definitely really awkward because they have this like very instant attraction to one another. The first time they meet, Hunt just has huge heart eyes. And by extension, Delia's like, ain't so bad yourself. But because she is a bastard and usually only ever gets negative attention in the ton, she kind of just writes him off. And Hunt is fascinated by that. The way they snip back and forth at each other is really fun. Like I said, the majority of their interactions thus far have been banter focused, but I did appreciate how whenever there is the moment that he clears things up, she's like, but you're of African descent. Like, how are you in the nobility? So it is starting to shift her perception of the ton and hopefully by extension, what she expects for herself. And, you know, though she can stand on her own 2 feet very well, maybe this will kind of encourage her to like demand more respect among the ton as well. I'm really hoping for that. So I have been really enjoying this lately. If I am being honest, I've had the opportunity to try and continue on with Serpent and the Wings of Night, and I just really haven't felt a draw to. While I am invested into the plot, I think I'm more invested into the plot of like the games and not so much the plot of the bigger storyline. And now that we're diving more into the bigger storyline, I'm kind of starting to lose steam with it a little bit. But at the same time, like I said, I've kind of had some shit going on over the last few days, so I haven't really been pushing myself too much to pick books up. So this is a very unexpected end to this reading vlog, but if nothing else, I got some reading done this week. But on that note, I guess that's officially it for today, y'all. So thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let's leave a horse emoji down in the comments. I've got links to all my socials if you're not following me on something down in the description. I come out videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope that you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!